Hey all, Adam here with Chris Bender from Podcast RX with Chris Bender, and it's been a while since we've had an episode. We wanted to check back in here ahead of the holidays just to get you caught up what's going on here, because I promise we're going to come back with new episodes, and we're looking forward to that. So anyway, Chris, what's happening? It's been a crazy last few months.
Yeah, it really has been. Just been keeping busy. I think I'd mentioned on the last podcast, we were just about to have our second child, like days before the last podcast. So things have been busy. We've had our second little baby boy in
Awesome.
August. So now we are just like ramping up for the whole holiday thing, because now we're just we're only like a few days out from Christmas. So we've just been just been keeping things steady at the house, getting ready for the holidays. It's been awesome, man. I gotta say, doing all the Christmas holiday festivities with one boy, with one kid was great. And now we do it with two, and it's like double the fun. So it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
How about
you? Yeah. Certainly a lot of that the same. And I just wanted to say congratulations, Chris. We never got to talk about your second child here on the pod. Yeah. So that's congratulations to you and Katie. And a baby's first Christmas. What a special time that is. And I'm glad you're getting to enjoy all that. And as far as me goes, I got three, and it's controlled chaos, but it's all good. And now I've got kids at our age where they're really excited. My two older ones are really looking forward to it. Begrudgingly, we did not my idea. My wife's, we got the elf on the shelf thing happening.
No, I knew you were going there.
So, that's,
another task for dad.
Right. Yeah. Can't win them all, but in a true spirit of dad, just trying to have fun with it. So the kids have been enjoying that, and they're really excited here for later in the week. So just a lot going on, but I was thinking back.
Don't worry, I'll be there with you in a year or two on that elf.
You will. But thinking back to our last episode was August, and it just doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But between, of course, you had another child. We've had a lot of things going on in marketing / proposals. That's, just some big things happening there. So those last few months really did fly by. So I thought, man, we really got to get back on here, at least check in with listeners ahead of Christmas and let them know we're still alive, basically.
Exactly.
But also, you had some cool travel stuff happening too with optics. You guys did a new conference this year as well. Yeah,
ACCP was a really good time. We had a chance to go out there and meet with a lot of good people. It was a really, and I'm sure this is something that we'll speak in more depth of in future podcasts. But suffice it to say, it's a really good conference, clinically speaking, for providers, like-minded individuals to kind of come from the correctional perspective, both to talk to their colleagues about what they're doing in their respective environments, and also just kind of keep abreast of new topics, new strategies. And it was a very different type of vibe from NCCHC, which is more of a broad net, whereas ACCP was a little bit more clinical. So it was a really good chance for us to network with a lot of different people, but also kind of grow our relationship with ACCP as well, and forge a stronger partnership with them.
Yeah. And ACCP, that's American College of Correctional Physicians, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Right. And it's and very what a great opportunity for your team in optics and for Diamond as a whole to be affiliated with a prestige physicians organization devoted to corrections too.
Yeah, and moving forward, we're going to be providing more of an educational role with them, and I think that's a good opportunity, both for optics to get our name out there, to get our message out there, and to provide education, which is what we're so akin to doing. But also too, for the members, it was kind of noticed that while they were getting a lot of good clinical information, it was sort of like a blind spot to getting a more of a pure pharmacology type of education in there. So a little bit more nuts and bolts type of stuff, but also, gain the clinical perspective of a pharmacist, which can be in some cases slightly different or a different angle than what you would get with, from a physician or nurse practitioner or physician assistant. So I think that will be something that providers can benefit from, getting our perspective every so often through our webinars and whatnot moving forward.
Yeah. And of course, more potential listeners for the podcast as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And that was another thing too that we pitched whenever we were out there. So I managed to talk to a couple people about the podcast. There was definitely some interest, and so I'm looking forward to that because I've even been in discussions with different providers about like, hey, what would you like to hear? And that's the type of feedback that we want here. Yeah. Because the more we know about what listeners would like to hear, the better information or episodes we can make in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you do enjoy this show, Podcast RX with Chris Bender, do follow us on your podcast platform of choice. Make sure you give us a review, share a review, give us a rating. We want to hear your feedback. And you can get in touch with us directly, podcastrx@diamondpharmacy.com. We'd love to hear feedback from everyone out there. And also, too, want to make sure that we plug the new Optics website, something we'll talk about more certainly in a forthcoming episode. But you got a brand new website standalone for Optics, opticsclinical.com, and a lot of exciting content on there, too.
Yeah, I think it's actually really great. It's been something that we always kind of toyed with for a long time, actually, because we always have like this repository of information, like clinical resources, like charts and documents. Some are more for like regulatory compliance purposes. Other are more like clinical cheat sheets and stuff like that. And it was always one of those things where people had to come to us to ask for them, and then we would disseminate them that way. But we kind of thought like it might be nice to have a forward-facing or like a client-facing repository of all this information where the client could, create an account, and then they would have access to this bucket of information, and they could just go in there and grab whatever they needed whenever they needed it. And it also kind of created this incentive to create additional things for the website. Like we always had this certain handful of documents that we would always continue to update. But now that we see this avenue, we're kind of thinking like, hey, maybe we could create this little cheat sheet for the website. So it's not only giving people access to our current set of information, but moving forward, it's also going to become more robust. And I think the goal has always been to just put optics out there more front of line for providers to utilize our services, but also make us easier to access. So I think it's achieving both of those. And looking at the website myself, I mean, it's a pretty easy, user-friendly website. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how it looks. The colleague Matt here in marketing, he had a lot of interfacing with you guys, getting that already, and it looks great. And but do definitely go check that out, opticsclinical.com. It's a very exciting time for you all just to have that standalone presence out there. And as you said, it's going to get more robust. There's going to be more things on there, and really excited about the possibilities. But Chris, we're here today on this little holiday, pre-holiday mini-sode of sorts. And, we did a full episode on this last year, but we're going to just kind of do an abbreviated form of it now. You had a holiday wish list for pharmacy. Pharmacist holiday wish list, I believe, was the title of the episode. Just some things you were hoping to see in 2025. And I thought, hey, it would be a great time to revisit that for 2026. Just a quick rundown of things you're hoping to see hit the pharmacy profession in the new year.
Yeah. So much like we did last year, I wanted to start with some things that we may actually see happen next year, specifically with regard to like potential new drug approvals. Of course, as has been the trend in, numerous previous years, we expect to see a lot more specialized medications for things like oncology and rare diseases. But, sticking to some that might be a little bit more applicable to our listeners, these include things like CagriSema, which our listeners may actually remember us anticipating on this episode last year. But this is going to be the year. I'll call it here. So just as a reminder, CagriSema is a combination of cagrilintide and semaglutide, which is being evaluated for obesity and type 2 diabetes with greater potency than just semaglutide alone. Similar to this, orforglipron may be expected to be approved next year, which is actually an oral GLP-1 agonist that's being evaluated for weight loss. There is another that I thought was pretty interesting, which is Anafilm, which is a sublingual epinephrine product, which I thought could be useful for individuals who might have an aversion, to the traditional injectable product. And of course, we expect to see some movement in the biosimilar space as well, with potential biosimilar approvals expected for the rapid acting insulins Humalog and Novolog, as well as for Simponi, which is a TNF alpha blocker that's used to treat ankylosing spondylitis, polyarticular juvenile idiopathic arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and ulcerative colitis. Additionally, we may see some notable generic approvals for brand name medications like Briviact, which is used for seizures, Januvia, which is used for diabetes, Xeljanz, which is used for rheumatologic and inflammatory bowel conditions. And then I was surprised to see that there's actually a few pulmonary arterial hypertension drugs that could go generic, which includes Opsumit, Tracleer, and Uptravi. Now, in terms of what I would like to see, a little more pie in the sky side of things, unfortunately, I'm still waiting on those wishes from last year. Those being, I think they were expanded scope of pharmacy practice, easier biosimilar substitution, and decreased drug shortages. Now, to be fair, the FDA did recently release a set of guidelines that would make it easier for biosimilars to be developed as interchangeable with brand name biologics. But of course, state imposed substitution restrictions will still apply. And with regard to drug shortages, listeners likely know that the situation this year really hasn't been much better than last year. So we're going to just have to continue to hope for improvement on that one. But aside from that, I would really like to see kind of, generally speaking, lower costs for medications and in particular brand name medications. We've seen numerous reports this year of manufacturers providing their medications at lower cost, and that's either through direct-to-consumer sales or whether it be through contracting with the government or even through direct online pharmacies. And that's great. In my opinion, though, this kind of creates like an imbalanced pricing structure that probably just further shifts the cost onto the commercial insurance side of their business, which is really only to the detriment of those individuals who receive their medication via their commercial insurance. So what I would prefer is a more transparent, flat rate for all medications, just to keep things fair for everyone, regardless of how they're getting their medication. At the same time, I'd also like to see more generic competition because, of course, more generic manufacturers generally leads to decreased prices for any given generic medication. And of course, this also has the ancillary effect of introducing some sense of redundancy into the market, which can kind of help prevent drug shortages in and of itself, kind of circling back to that wish that I had from last year.
Well, certainly having cheaper and more widely available medications, that's going to be on everyone's wish list every year. And also, I just looking at some of your hopes for approvals and the CagriSema, that's going to be something I know that we'll definitely talk about on the show when it does get full approval. Just how popular our GLP-1 focused episodes are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're only going to be getting more. There's a ton in the pipeline. But the one that I'm most excited for that didn't make this list because I don't think it's going to be coming out next year is retatrutide, which is a triple agonist. So, hey, if one is good, three is better, right?
Yeah, right.
it's extremely, extremely potent, extremely effective. But again, it's still a little bit too soon to expect it to be approved. But I think, if in my opinion, that's probably going to be like the next big blockbuster one.
Sure.
So maybe check back in, 2027 for that episode.
Right.
But don't worry, there'll be plenty to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. And Anafilm stood out to me too. My daughter has a peanut allergy, and so we do have the EpiPens, but a sublingual epinephrine, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's something that they've been targeting a lot lately is trying to find alternative dosage forms for epinephrine, which, isn't like alternative dosage forms, typically speaking, isn't like a sexy new drug approval kind of thing. Right. But I think that like within the case of epinephrine, something that's so ubiquitous and also something that is, sometimes scary to use. That's one of those cases where it's probably a good, like it is probably an exciting thing to have alternative dosage forms.
Yep.
Like there's the, there, it's always been injectable, but there's the intranasal one that's on the market now. So I
Yeah.
think this one, this being sublingual, is just kind of nice because not everyone wants to go through that type of experience of injection.
Right. Oh, you were also mentioning the oral GLP-1, which was something I remember in our early episodes, we just talked about the injectables, and I remember asking you about, do you think, is there an oral, or will there be an oral? And so it's interesting to see that coming along too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that with just how big that field is, I think they're just trying to expand access to everyone, because it kind of goes back to the epinephrine thing. Like the patient doesn't always want to inject themselves. Some people don't like that. So
Sure.
the oral route is really nice and appealing to some.
Well, Chris, I wanted to ask you this question. Is it fair to say that every time a new drug is approved, a pharmacist gets their wings?
Yes.
Right.
Nice one.
Yeah, that was a reach. I know, but I needed some kind of segue into our special trivia capsule segment. For those who don't know, Diamond Pharmacy's home base, our company's home base of Indiana, Pennsylvania, is also the birthplace of the cinematic legend and World War II hero, James Jimmy Stewart, the star of Rear Window, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and of course, the holiday staple, It's a Wonderful Life. I've never actually seen this essential Christmas film, but I know you have, Chris. And being the pharmacy nerd you are, you discovered a piece of pharmacy trivia in the movie, and which I can imagine discovering pharmacy trivia in a movie is a pretty gratifying experience for a pharmacist. I can imagine you looking kind of like that Leo DiCaprio meme. It's a still from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where he's pointing at the TV. That's what I imagine you looking like when you notice this piece of trivia. So what exactly did you see in It's a Wonderful Life that ties back to pharmacy?
Yeah, listen, you don't get to see a lot of that nerdy pharmacy stuff in media too much. So the moment you get to see it, you kind of perk up a little bit. So yeah. So for those, those who have seen the movie, there is a scene where the pharmacist, Mr. Gower, nearly gives poison to a child instead of their intended medication, only for the error to be eventually caught and prevented by the young George Bailey. But do we know what the poison was? Well, this is actually a trick question, because it was never explicitly stated, although some references suggest that it may have been cyanide. But we aren't here to discuss the surprising medicinal uses of cyanide, because, well, there really are none. It is poison after all. So, no, we're actually here to discuss what that prop bottle actually contained, which, if you look closely at the back, you can roughly make out the name pv.glycer.ext, otherwise known as licorice root extract. And repeat listeners to our show know where I'm going with this. So licorice root has a long history of medicinal use dating back to ancient Egypt, where it was made into a sweet drink for the pharaohs. It has also been used in traditional Chinese, Middle Eastern, and Greek medicines to soothe upset stomach, reduce inflammation, and treat upper respiratory problems like cough and sore throat. It played a role in more modern medicine in the 17 and 1800s when it was used as a common ingredient by pharmacists when creating their various concoctions. Now, aside from its medicinal use, licorice began its transition into a candy when in 1760, an English pharmacist added sugar to a cough medicine that contained licorice root, and the idea of licorice as a candy went viral and became widely available around the mid-1800s. Unfortunately, however, most licorice in the US no longer contains actual licorice, opting for the cheaper aniseed oil. So this year, if you have a bellyache from Christmas dinner, maybe put the movie on and grab a Twizzler. Sure, it may not contain licorice, but we can be just as glad that it doesn't contain what else might have been in that jar. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
That is so cool. And I had no idea the extensive history of licorice as medicine. But again, going back to the film, that you were able to put that all together, do that detective work on that. I've never been a fan of black licorice. Have you? I'm just an aside.
Oh boy, no, I just can't. Those little, what are they? Mike and I, or no, Good and Plenty's. Those are something my grandfather used to just eat by the box full, man, and I just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think of Twizzlers. I mean, to your point about grabbing a Twizzler, I've always thought of Twizzlers as not licorice because, when I first learned what licorice was, it was that, anise tasting black licorice.
Yeah.
And
our modern conception is very different than what it truly was. My take is that there just wasn't enough candy back then, so you'd grab for whatever.
Right. And how interesting that it caught on is, this pharmacist ingredient becomes a candy that way. Not unlike what we see with soft drinks.
When your only two options are licorice and hardtack, you're going to grab the licorice. But nowadays we got everything.
Yeah. Oh, maybe this holiday season, I actually will watch It's a Wonderful Life. I did see in the news that there's a Jimmy Stewart biopic in the works.
Really?
Yeah, that'll no doubt be of much excitement to folks here in Indiana, PA. Yeah.
I was going to say, I can't imagine that they would, but it'd be cool to get some local shots, for the movie.
Yeah, I think actually read, I think it's being shot in Ireland, actually, of all places. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
A little far ways from Indiana, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to settle for Armagh or something. Yeah. It's the closest we can get. But Chris, this is great to check in with you here ahead of the holidays. Thanks so much for making some time. And we will be back in the new year with some new episodes. As Chris mentioned, there's a lot of potential new topics here between, the new audiences with the folks from the ACCP and other things that we've been kicking around. So we're excited to get back into it on a more regular basis. And again, please follow us, Podcast RX with Chris Bender. Find it on your favorite podcast app. Do leave us a review, give us a rating. Just want to get this show out there to more. The downloads are looking good. They're very consistent. I'm seeing a lot more folks listening. So it's been wonderful. And I know, Chris, you've been talking to people either on the road or, clients that you're working with who are telling you that they're listening to the pod. So we love to hear that. And we just want to hear more of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's been well received so far. So we're going to move into the new year and keep doing our thing.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, Chris, I just wanted to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays ahead, and best wishes for everything in the new year. And same to our listeners.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Adam. And likewise to you. And yes, all of our listeners, all the best for the new year and happy holidays.
All right. Well, Chris, take care and we'll talk to you all soon. And again, happy holidays. Podcast RX features conversations with healthcare professionals. The statements and opinions discussed herein are for informational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered professional medical advice and should not be used as the substitute for the advice of an appropriately qualified and licensed healthcare professional. Therefore, listeners must not rely on the statements made herein.
Podcast RX is a production of Diamond Pharmacy Services. Find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy podcasts. And where possible, please rate and review. If you'd like to get in touch with the show directly, shoot us an email at podcastrx@diamondpharmacy.com. Thank you again for your support.